Joining me now is 2020 presidential candidate and Colorado Democratic Senator Michael Bennet. He's also a member of the Senate Intel Committee. Senator,
I'm not John Bolton.
You're not John. Well, you could grow a mustache and disguise yourself and come on. Do you think it's a good idea for Democrats to move forward without hearing from Bolton or Giuliani or Mulvaney or pushing harder?
Well, I think they have pushed hard, and the president has stonewalled and said, we don't want these people to testify, and history is going to write about Mike Pompeo and the rest of these guys and their unwillingness to do it. But the evidence has been entirely consistent since the first witness testified, and it's up to the White House if they want to stonewall. I don't think that should stop the House from moving forward.
So if they move forward with articles of obstruction in their articles of impeachment, I guess my question is, if this goes from the House to the Senate and then bleeds into 2020, how are 2020 Democrats looking at this? Is it something that might be a problem for campaigning? Or, as some candidates might say, is it something that is more necessary for history than it is?
Yeah, I think that's how I think about it, Katy. I mean, nobody chose, well, some people did. I certainly didn't choose to have this lawless president in the White House. But we have a constitutional obligation to do what we're going to do, and we need to do it well and responsibly. And if that means we have to come off the trail to do it, we have to come off the trail to do it. And we have no idea how long the trial is going to last. That is in Mitch McConnell's hands, and you can be sure that he will schedule it in a way that is creates maximum pain for the people he wants to create maximum pain for, and give him the benefit of being able to say, we took this seriously, but we didn't agree with the impeachment.
Talking about Senator Collins and Senator Romney, there's this idea that's floating out there. Peggy Noonan advanced it in the Wall Street Journal, that maybe they would be more open to something like a censure and might be pushing for something like that in the Senate instead of a vote to remove the president. Would that be something that you would be satisfied with?
I haven't had any discussions with anybody about that, and sitting here today, I wouldn't be satisfied with that. I mean, you've got a president which all the evidence shows basically shook down a foreign government to investigate his political rivals, then lied about it, and then changed his mind about it over and over again, and then stonewalled. And the Congress has a responsibility to do oversight, and that's what's happening here.
Is he so much of a threat to our elections right now that he needs to be removed, as Nancy Pelosi intimated in her letter?
Well, I think he's a threat to the country, and not just domestically, but internationally. I think every single day that he's there, you know, the Iranians are pressing their advantage in their region. The Chinese are pressing their advantage. The Russians are pressing their advantage. It's incredible what happens in a world where there is no American leadership and where you have a president as weak as this president is. So it may be that we don't end up with a conviction in the Senate. I think that's probably likely, sitting here today, that we won't. We're still going to have to beat him at the polls in November, and I think that's what people in Iowa and New Hampshire are expecting is going to happen.
You and I talk about the system, and we've had these conversations. Yeah. We had them on the show the other day, and we've had them in your office for my other show, American Swamp. Does the American public have so little trust in our government that Donald Trump's able to get away with this sort of thing because they think all politicians are corrupt and Washington is corrupt because it is corrupt? Legally, we've legalized bribery in how we fund our elections. We legalize bribery to an extent with how we lobby and how much money can infect our politics. We've talked about funding our elections and funding individual candidates. Candidates dial for dollars for half the week while they're in Washington. Because of the way the system is currently set up and how money has, if you don't want to call it bribery, how money has influenced our way of government. And would you be surprised that Americans maybe think that Donald Trump is just one of the same? Maybe he's doing it worse than everyone else. Maybe he's a little clumsier than everyone else. But Americans out there might be looking and saying, hey, I don't think he's doing what other politicians don't do behind the scenes.
I think it's really important to understand that. It's important to understand that Donald Trump is not the essential cause of the problems that we face as a country, whether it's lack of economic mobility or the failure of our political institutions. He is a symptom of that. He's a symptom of people saying to Washington, we're going to blow the place up. We're going to send a reality TV star there who's, you know, obviously unqualified. People knew that he was unqualified, but it seemed like matters couldn't get any worse. And of course, they have gotten worse. We are not going to address that just by beating Donald Trump. We have to start governing the country again. And you know, a woman asked me the other day in Des Moines the most existential question anybody's asked me during the campaign, which was, can Western democracies solve climate change? And That is a real question in front of us, because if you're Mitch McConnell and Trump, you can accept the rubble of our broken politics and our broken system because you're not actually trying to do anything but put right-wing judges on the courts. If you want a solution to climate, we can't live in a world where Michael Bennet goes in, I put my climate plan in, it lasts for 2 or 4 years, and then it gets ripped out. And then I put it in, and it gets ripped out. I put it in, and it gets ripped out. The Koch brothers will be there that whole time, to your reporting and to your point. We actually have to construct a politics that can create an American climate plan, just like we used to have American
How do you do
foreign
that
policy.
in the current
There's no
system?
shortcut. You have to overcome the current system.
Is it possible?
It has to be possible, because otherwise the answer to that woman's question in Des Moines is
no.
No. And that's what we're fighting for. The democracy is at risk. It was at risk before Trump got there. It's at risk for all the reasons that you've reported. And we got to clean it up, which means we have to get the money out of our politics and get people back into our politics. But we also need an agenda that's going to unite at least enough of the American people to be able to make gains and then sustain the changes that are made. And
do we have enough time to do it?
We have to. We don't have any other choice. We got no other choice. And I think that if we do the hard work of galvanizing the American people, if we have an agenda that can actually bring people together rather than further divide them, we have a chance to do it. If we don't, we won't. And it's that serious. I mean, I think that we are at a tipping point.
No doubt about that. Senator Michael Bennet, good to see you in person.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in.
Let
Happy
me come
Thanksgiving.
back sometime.
You can
Happy
come back whenever you want.
Good. Thank you.